Hey, it's Sri here. In today's video, I'm going to talk you through why no contact is not a very good strategy if you are on the brink of divorce right now or going through a separation. Now, I know going through a separation or being on the receiving end of infidelity is such a painful experience. And so firstly, I just want to acknowledge your pain and honor the fact that I know it's a really, really tough time for you. But I really want you to know that there is hope. Transformation is real, and I've seen it time and time again with so many of my amazing clients. And whether that's them saving their marriage and create an extraordinary one with their husband, or whether that's them being in a really, really bad marriage that wasn't necessarily serving them long term, and then they decided that they needed to get away from it and actually find something more beautiful on the other side of it. Whatever that healing process is, it is possible. People like Angie and Laurie and Monique and Sarah and all these wonderful women who I've worked with over the years who've been able to create remarkable shifts. And I want you to have the same experience. So make sure you watch this entire video, take notes, and that way it's going to really sink into your subconscious and have the greatest impact right now. Make sure you hit that subscribe button below, click on that bell notification as well, so every week you get access to my latest videos where I talk you through a little bit more about how to really awaken your goddess within, how to really heal from infidelity and give yourself the best chance of being able to save your marriage. Now, going through a difficult time in your marriage can create a whole bunch of confusion on the inside, especially with the proliferation of material online that tells you to do one thing and then you find another article that contradicts that very thing that you learnt on the other article. So it becomes very, very confusing, and I understand why the confusion is there. And one of those really confusing points often is that of no contact. Do you just completely back off from him, or do you actually make an effort to communicate with him and reach out and send messages and express how you feel and all of that stuff to your husband if he's either on the verge of a separation or maybe things just aren't quite where you want them to be? How do you actually handle that? What do you do moving forward? Now, having worked with hundreds and hundreds of people, both individually and collectively in a group over the last 10 years, I've been able to really see at close quarters, the different ideas and the different thought processes that goes through an individual's mind when they're potentially on the verge of a divorce. It is so difficult and so painful on so many levels. And this idea of no contact is a really, really challenging one because, logically it kind of makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, rejection breeds obsession. So hey, guess what? If I just back off a little bit, then surely he's going to come towards me a little bit more. And there have been so many examples of that in the past. But one of the things that's really important for me, whenever I'm coaching my clients or serving people on any level, is we've got to ask ourselves, what's our intent behind things? Why are we doing what we're doing? And if we don't understand the intention behind it, then it's going to fall flat on its face a lot of the time, because most of our decisions in life, especially when we're in an emotional state and when we're in a survival place, comes down to fear. Fear is such a big driver in our lives. And this is the reason why I'm just not a fan of no contact in a lot of ways. And I want to explain to you 3 reasons why no contact is not a very good strategy, and then what you need to do in order to be able to move forward. Now, the first reason why no contact is not a very good option in my opinion is because of the driver behind that behavior for most people. As I said before, because most of us operate from fear when we're in a survival place. And when I say survival, just by the way, what I mean is that when we're in a place where we're potentially going to lose something, it feels at the deepest level like death, like the deepest part of us is being stripped away from us, our security, our certainty, our feelings of significance and so on. It feels like it's been taken away. So what do? If we're literally in the middle of a jungle and a lion's coming toward us, we basically go into fight, flight or freeze mode. And for a lot of people, that fight mode is, I'm going to basically just back off. And a lot of the time, when they're stepping into that fight, flight, or freeze mode, what happens is most of the time, they want to step into fight. And might be sitting there going, well, hang on, I'm going no contact. How is that fight? It's fight because our intent a lot of the time is, okay, I'm going to back off. So I really want this. I'm going to fight for this. But my way of fighting for it is to back off. And even some of you might be in a place where you think you're coming from a place of flight, but the flight side of it is not really accurate because you still want to make this work. You want to make the marriage work. So you're not actually running away from it. You're really fighting and you're trying to work out what is actually going to work to get him back. So surely if I back off, then history suggests over time in my life that if I back off in things, people come towards me. I mean, think of the dating process, right? It's the person that shuts you down, that dumps you or whatever. They're the one you want to get their attention from. The person actually cares about us or wants to be with us and so on, not really that big a deal. But the one that says, I don't like you or I don't want to date you, they're the one that we're really dying for their attention. So what we have to understand is that if we're coming down this path of I want to try and get him back, and I'm going to do that by applying no contact, then our intention doesn't have a positive intent behind it. Now we might think, but actually I'm doing this because I want him back. It's not, because we're not really understanding what's actually going on behind it. We're not understanding the reasons why they're wanting to walk away. We're not understanding the reasons why they're wanting to back off. We're not understanding enough about their hidden drivers. And so if our intention is I'm going to back off to try and basically get him to come towards me, we're not coming in with an open heart. We're using strategies and being almost manipulative in a way to try and get him back. And to me, that's not pure. That's not coming from the heart. That's not coming from love. And if our intention is not coming from a place of love, if we're not doing things with a pure intent, then the chances are we're not going to get the outcome that we're looking for. And so sometimes it's actually better to actually have a conversation, to reach out if our intention is coming from love. We've got to come from that place. If we're always coming from this fear-based place, in life in general, at least in my experience, things don't work out. Things very rarely work out. So you have to ask yourself, what is my intention here? If I'm coming from fear, is it the right thing to do? If I'm coming from love, then it might be the right thing to do. Now, in terms of, your circumstances right now, you might be in a situation where your husband is really, really toxic, where the negativity and, all of the behaviors that he's been engaging in has dragged you down a lot. So in that situation, you might want to go no contact just to get yourself away from it. But if you are wanting to truly save this marriage, if you really want to work on it and your husband is a good man, then just going no contact because you think that's going to pull him towards you might yield some short-term results, but in the long run you'll always lose. So that's the first reason why I don't necessarily agree with applying no contact. Second reason is that we're not really taking the time to understand what's actually going on in his mind. What are the reasons why he's actually walking away? Do I understand at a deeper level where he's at mentally, emotionally? Where is he at in his life at the moment? Does his life reality match his expectations? Does he feel like a fraction of the man that he normally is? Does it all feel too much for him at this moment in time? Where is he at actually? And this is why, whenever it comes to any kind of relationship or marriage, we've really got to learn about where the other person is at. What is their center of gravity at this moment in time? How are they holding up on all levels? And by understanding that, you can then respond in a way that's actually for his highest good and for your own highest good. Now, let's say, for example, he's in a really dark space. It's all too much, the pressure's too much. You might be sitting there going, what pressure? Like, we have this great life, things are all good. But let me tell you right now, we've seen this in examples of, famous people, famous men committing suicide when they look like they've got the most beautiful family going around. Men often feel a different type of pressure. They can be so hard on themselves. They can be brutal. They can feel like they're just not good enough, or they feel like they're failing, or they had this expectation of what life was supposed to be like, and then it's not happening. Or maybe they've actually succeeded a lot and it feels empty, and they're not able to, elevate their emotions in the levels that they thought they would. That they feel like a fraud. They feel like they're not good enough, and so on. So men can be really, really hard on themselves. And if we're not really taking the time to understand that person's world, we're not coming from an open-hearted place. Now, my question to you is that you're obviously in a very difficult situation right now in your marriage. If you weren't, you probably wouldn't be watching this video. Now, let's say your husband's walked away. He says, look, I just can't do this anymore. And immediately you might be angry. You might be hurt, feeling rejected. There might be resentment. All these different ranges of emotions will be coming up for you. However, if he was to explain to you exactly where he was at, if he was to show emotion, if he was to really express his vulnerability and be completely open with you, would that change your viewpoint? And I will pretty much guarantee that it will. Because that's what happens in life. When we actually understand where someone is at, when someone is actually apologizing or being vulnerable on some level, we have a different level of empathy than if we just observe their behaviors and then come from a judgmental place. So it's really good to understand what's actually going on in his world. Have some conversations. Go a little bit deeper on that front. You know, really understand his world. And when you do that, it's going to give you a greater understanding of where he's at. And when you're in that place, you're then going to be able to communicate in a better way. You're not going to feel like, oh, okay, maybe I should just back off because, you know, he's in a really dark space and he's not really being warm and affectionate towards me. What you're going to be doing is understanding where he's at. And when you understand his world, you're going to react from a completely different place. And that's the greatest gift that we can give ourselves. The real miracle in life is a changing of perception, not a changing in the circumstance. Because if we shift our perception, not only do we deal with the present situation in a better way, but if the present moment is our opportunity to be able to create a future, then we're going to take the best action that we can as well. So that's the second point I wanted to make. And the third point I wanted to make around no contact not necessarily being a very good approach is that often it comes from a place of playing games. You know, so many people, if they're honest with themselves, will kind of go, oh, wow, you know what? I think maybe if I just back off a little bit, then maybe he'll come to me or she'll come back to me and so on. And once again, it's our intent. What is our intent here? Are we coming from a pure place, from an honest place, from a loving place, from an empathetic place? Or are we doing it so that we can get our short-term needs met, but ultimately in the long term, things aren't necessarily going to flow? See, we live in this world where everything's just all about instant gratification. So many of us fail to really take advantage of the long game. And that to me is the most important part of this whole journey. You've got to play the long game. You know, sometimes I might say things in these videos which may not necessarily be, you know, exciting or, you know, really kind of give you that sugar high or that rush. But I will promise you that the things that are talked about in these videos are the foundations for your healing long term. And you've got to take this approach. You've got to take a loving approach. You've got to take an empathetic approach. You've got to heal on the inside. And some of that stuff is uncomfortable. You know, when we want to achieve things in life, and we want those things that we want, whatever that is, that marriage or business success, career success, finances, whatever it is, the universe is not going to sit there and go, all right, well, here you go, it's all yours. The universe is often going to bring up every impediment or every obstacle that we need to overcome in order to get the very thing that we want. So we've got to really go deep. We've got to create shifts long term. And the way we win long term is by running the marathon. I don't mean that literally, although you can if you want. But it's about going deep. It's about playing the long game and really creating the healing on the inside. And I promise you, when you do that, you know, it's sometimes not easy, but boy, it's worthwhile. It is so worthwhile. So, you know, I understand that the pain that you're going through right now is not easy, and I know that it can feel like it's just, you know, you're constantly getting beaten from pillar to post, you know, emotionally a lot of the time, especially when things just aren't quite working out the way you want to. So, you know, if you're in a place where you are struggling and you're hurting and you're not really sure what to do and how to move forward on your journey, then I'd love to be of service to you through my program, the Authentic Relationship System. It's an amazing program. It's going to help you to really create that deep level of healing on the inside, but something that's actually going to stand the test of time. And that's going to serve you long term, because the support that's provided is indefinite. And that's one of the greatest gifts that you can get through by going through this particular program as well. And so if it feels right for you, if you connect with some of my videos and connect with my energy and like my New Zealand accent, then just in the description section below, you'll see a link that says book a call with me. Just click on that link, choose a time that works for you, and then I'll contact you at that scheduled time, just so I can learn a little bit more about you, about where you are now, where you want to get to, and how we can bridge that gap and really promote and create that healing, so that not only can you heal and grow yourself, but also do everything that you can to be able to save your marriage and really get your husband back, because I want you to have that wonderful experience that so many of my clients have as well. So once again, click on that link, choose a time that works for you, and then I'll contact you at that scheduled time. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've liked it, make sure you hit the like button below. If you want to get more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. And do let me know what your biggest takeaway is from this video as well. If you have any comments or questions, or there are things you're not quite sure about, just write them below. I always love hearing the comments and the questions, and I'll make sure I respond to every single one of you. And if you want to learn whether your husband's going through a midlife crisis, click this video above. And if you want to learn how to go about saving your marriage from the brink of divorce, click this video above. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next video.